Hi and good evening. Welcome to my latest live session. Thank you to all of you that have voted for what this session should consist of. There were three options and the clear winner, what you wanted to learn about tonight, was how to negotiate the best price on your property purchase. So that is exactly what I'm going to bring to you. So thank you for those that have voted. For those of you that voted for other topics, I'll have an opportunity to talk about those next week, and I hope you find this evening's session useful. Also, thank you so much to everyone that tunes into these each week. Again, we had over 3,000 views on last week's session, so thank you for those that are supporting. Again, be grateful if you please could share the post on the bottom there. I'd really appreciate that. So we're going to get stuck straight into the content this evening. Just to recap, I'm going to be giving you my top tips to help you to negotiate the best price on your property purchase. So the first one is to understand your local market, understand the local market, and there's some great tools and resources that will enable you to do that. So you'll be familiar with them: Rightmove, Zoopla, On the Market, or any other property portal of choice. And on those portals, they tell you all sorts of information about the properties that are available for sale. So things such as how long the property's been on the market for, any price reductions on that property, and it will also tell you about comparable properties in that postcode, and also other properties that are a similar size and style as well. So as an example, if you're interested in a property that's been on the market for 6 months, it's been reduced in price a couple of times, then that may well reflect that the vendors could be getting quite desperate, and again puts you on the front foot when it comes to negotiations. On the flip side of that, if you've got a property that's just come to market in the last few days, chances are that the vendors aren't going to be too quick to be accepting offers considerably below asking price, because they're just on the market. They're probably going to see how things go before they accept anything too low. So that's the first thing. Second thing is to understand the vendor's financials. So what do I mean by that? I don't mean try and find out what the seller earns or how much money they've got sat in their bank account. But what I do mean by that is how much has the vendor, and when we say vendors, we mean the seller, how much have they invested into the property? So if they've only been in the property 2 or 3 years and they've, say, upgraded the bathroom, they've upgraded the kitchen, landscaped the garden, they've pumped quite a bit of money into the property, it's very likely that they're going to need to recoup some of that money as part of the sale of the property. And therefore you may not be able to negotiate as well on that basis. So it's a consideration for sure. On the flip side of that, if you've got a vendor or a seller that's lived in the property for 15 or 20 years, property prices have grown a huge number in that amount of time, and therefore they could be sat on quite a large amount of equity. And therefore they're probably not going to be too concerned about getting an extra couple of grand out of you from the purchase price. So, if that's the case and they have got a large amount of equity in the property, again, they might be more open to negotiating a price below the advertised price, as they're not necessarily going to need every last pound for their onward purchase. Of course, there's always exceptions to that, but generally speaking, that's the trends that we see. Third top tip is viewings. So when you go on viewings, if you do get the opportunity to speak with a vendor, I would recommend that you do, and try and find out from the vendor as much information as possible. The more information you can find out from the vendor, the better position you're going to put yourself for negotiating on the best possible price. So you should be finding out from the vendor things such as why they're moving, what's their motivations, have they had any other offers, and all these sorts of things again will put you on the front foot. So if you've got a vendor that's clearly motivated to move, so perhaps you've got an unfortunate situation where a couple were separating, they might want to just sever ties and get the house sold as quickly as possible. Or you might have a family that are looking to move and relocate to a school catchment area before the deadline, in which case they might be quite motivated to move as well. I've had a real life example recently where A lady has moved and relocated back down south to be closer to her children, and she's already gone. The house is sat there empty, and each and every day and month that goes by when that house is sat empty, it's costing her money in council tax, gas and electric. So again, that type of vendor is going to be more motivated to sell the property. So again, it puts you on the front foot to negotiate down on the asking price. What else have I got down here on my notes? Number 4, which is probably the most underestimated of all, but it's one of my favourite tips for that reason, and that is you. For you to really sell the benefits of you. So if you are a first-time buyer, you've got your cash deposit in your account readily accessible, you've already got your mortgage ready, you've spoken to your advisor and you know your mortgage ready, then you are the golden ticket for that vendor. You've got no chain, no property to sell. Even if you have got a property to sell, if it's a small chain, again, really emphasize the benefits of you as an individual. So you're motivated, you're organised, you're on the front foot, you've got your mortgage, your chain's small or you've got no chain, you're a low risk proposition. And really make sure you emphasize that when you're submitting your offer to the estate agent. Also as well, don't be afraid to play on emotion. It's probably not in the way that it's intended, but it's to a degree true. So chances are the vendors have built up quite a sentimental attachment to the property. They would have spent, a lot of cherished moments in that house. It could be where their kids grew up or where they got married, and the properties, people get quite attached to them. So really, don't underestimate how much it will mean to a vendor for them to know that you're going to go in that house and really look after it and make your own cherished memories and treat it the way that they did. Because, people like to know that their house is going to be looked after when they leave it. So, like I said, don't underestimate the power of that, and speaking with the vendor and or the agent and getting across your plans for the property. Is it going to be a family home for a long term? Are you looking to bring your children up in the house? Is it close to schools, etc.? All those sentimental things could be the difference between you being able to negotiate the best possible price or beating somebody else's offer that's also offered a similar amount to you. The 5th one is the offer. Okay, so crunch time, the offer. So this one isn't rocket science. You need to start low with your offer, but really, really importantly, not too low. If you start too low, then you're going to lose credibility and you might end up annoying the vendor and they may dismiss any further offers from you. So, if you've got a property on the market for 300,000, probably not wise, unless there's a good reason to do so, to be putting offers in at 250,000, because you're just going to annoy the vendor. So that's one thing to consider, is start low, because if you start low, you've got room to go up. Whereas if you start too close to the asking price, there's not much wiggle room if they reject your first offer. So no rocket science there, but you'll be amazed at how many people I've managed to help just by having those conversations with them and starting lower. So what I would suggest you do is you go in with a 3-stage offer strategy. We're going to start low, is the first offer, and the third is going to be the final and best offer, and that's what we're going to work towards. So the first offer goes in low. We're going to expect it would be nice if that offer gets accepted, but we're going to understand that because we've started low, that there's a good chance that first offer might get rejected. But this is the really crucial point. If the first offer is rejected, we request a counteroffer from the agent. Okay, so the property's on the market for 300,000, let's say. Now the chances are that property's been put on the market by the agent and they've explained to the vendor, look, we're going to put it on the market for 300,000 and we're going to expect to sell it for 290 to 295. That's essentially what the likelihood the conversation's been had with the agent. Everyone wants a bargain. The vendors know that, so they tend to put it on the market knowing they're going to end up having to accept slightly below that. So what you need to do is get a counter offer. So if your property that you've identified is on the market for 300,000, you may start at 285 as an example, and let's say that first opening offer of 285 is rejected. But what you're crucially going to do here is you're going to ask for a counter offer. Now they might well come back and say, actually, we're not going to accept 285, but we'll accept 295. Okay, now we've still got room to negotiate in there. Are we going to go to 295 with our second offer? No, we're not, but that might be our third and final best offer, and we know we've already got 5k off the asking price. So we're going to go with a second offer, and you're probably going to go with somewhere in the region of 290. Okay, and hope that that gets accepted. If not, we're going to go in with a third and final offer. We might be cheeky and going at 292,500, but if not, we're going in at 295. And we're saving 5k off the advertised price. That's just an example. 5k off the asking price doesn't sound like a huge number. That is just for an example, for illustrative purposes. I've been in positions where I've been able to save my clients up to £20,000 off the advertised price for a fairly modestly priced house, 2-bedroom house in Oxfordshire. So one thing that I do with all of my clients is when I'm working with them to look at their borrowing capacity, we look also at a strategy for obtaining the best possible price. So I sit down with my clients, I do the research for them and look at the trends in the market, comparable properties, how long it's been on the market for, has it been on with any other agents, have there been any reductions, what other properties are selling for in a similar area, similar style. And then we put together that three-stage strategy to maximise or even minimise, make sure we're getting the best price for them essentially. So that's my top tips for negotiation to get your best price for a property purchase. New builds is a slightly different beast, so we're going to come to new builds now. New builds in the past, with new builds, you've been less able to negotiate on the headline asking price, but those days are over. There's deals to be had now with new builds. Although they are large national new build providers and they've got sales targets and margins to hit, we're seeing more and more now the new build providers are willing to negotiate. And I've seen some pretty chunky reductions in recent times. So absolutely, there's always a deal to be struck with new build sites. You also need to consider if you are using the Help to Buy equity loan scheme, the scheme and many lenders will state that your incentives cannot exceed 5% of the advertised purchase price. So if you're lucky enough to get discounts to that degree, just make sure it doesn't tip over that scale because your lending options could be limited. Other things you can be negotiating on is not only the headline price and trying to get some money off that, but also is some other incentives. So the big one is stamp duty. If you're not a first-time buyer, of course, or if it's above 300,000. So if you're stamp duty, if you're liable to pay stamp duty, you should be negotiating that with a new build provider. Things like flooring, integrated appliances, upgraded kitchens, lawn in the garden. These are things that don't always come as standard. So there's always room to negotiate on those and get those chucked in as part of the deal. You'll be surprised when you really push the new build providers what they will chuck in, which are non-standard incentives. So I think that's pretty much it when it comes to negotiations. Just a bit of a recap then for those of you that have just joined. So my top tips for negotiating the best purchase price for your property is one, to understand the local market. Utilise resources such as Rightmove and Zoopla on the market. Look at how long it's been on the market for, any price reductions and other comparable properties of a similar type and style. Number two is to understand the vendor's financials. If they've invested a lot of money into the property, such as upgrading kitchens and bathrooms, chances are they've got to recoup that. Whereas if you've got a vendor that's lived in the property for some time, chances are their property price has grown and therefore they could be sat on a lot of equity, and therefore they may not need every last £1,000 towards their onward purchase, and you then could be in a better position to negotiate a better purchase price. Number three is viewings. If you get the opportunity to speak with the vendor, I would encourage you to do so. Find out why they're moving and their motivations, and utilise that to put yourself on the front foot when it comes to negotiations. If you've got a couple separating, or if you've got people that are needing to move quite urgently because of relocation for school catchment areas, or maybe they've already moved and the house is sat empty, those people are going to be more urgent and therefore they're more inclined to accept an offer below the asking price. Number four is sell yourself, sell your position. If you've got a small chain or no chain, or you're a first time buyer, really emphasize the fact that you're low risk and that you can move quickly, you're organized and you're motivated, you're mortgage ready, your deposit's in the bank, and say really emphasize that with the agent and the vendor. And don't be afraid to share the emotional side of things. If the vendor's built up quite an emotional attachment to the property, they will quite like the fact that you're going to look after the property in the same way they did. So make them aware of your plans. Is it going to be a long-term family home? Are you going to raise your children there? All these sorts of things you can discuss with the agent and make sure they put this information forward to the vendor when you're making your offer. And 5 is the offer itself. This is the crucial part, the negotiation part. So you're going to start low, but not too low. We don't want to annoy the vendors. We want some credibility. Once you've done all of the previous 4 tips, you're going to be in your position to put together your free offer strategy, starting low, working your way up towards your best and final offer. And importantly, if your first offer is rejected, you're going to ask for a counter offer, because that's going to help put you on the front foot when you're negotiating the best possible purchase price. Finally, new builds. New builds is a slightly different beast, but we're finding in current times there's absolutely deals to be had. They are there to be negotiated. So, again, same sort of rules apply. You need to be doing your research and finding out what incentives are available. It doesn't just apply to the the headline purchase price. It also extends to things like stamp duty, extras like your integrated appliances, upgraded kitchens, lawn, those sorts of things as well. So that concludes this evening's session. Thank you again for all of you for tuning in. I'd be grateful if you could share I couldn't get my words out then. If you could share the post, that'd be fantastic. And as always, if you've got any questions, any queries about how to negotiate your best purchase price or anything we've discussed this evening, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. I'll be going live again at 7:30 next Wednesday. If there's a particular topic you would like me to cover, feel free to DM me and I can look to see if I can do that for you. Hope you're all well. Thanks for tuning in. Love you all. See you next week.